contradiction is the right term for what's taking place in the political legal system also. They're making better laws gradually. That's progress. And the law professors who are helping on this, and they're very influential, more than we are in America as law teachers, their view is eventually these norms will be implemented to a greater extent. But they're afraid to worry about practice, and they want to keep their jobs, and they usually keep their silence. Lawyers occasionally will speak out despite the controls of the party and the Ministry of Justice on them, and despite the tremendous campaign against them now. But practice is going the other way. As was already recognized here, you have high degree of repression of lawyers. It's so different from 10 years ago when people were predicting great things would happen in practice as well as legislation. So the gap is really increasing between better norms, better pieces of paper, and hideous practice with respect to many things. There are lots of mundane cases, hundreds of thousands, where things are being carried on in an acceptable way. But there are hundreds of thousands, not just a few politically sensitive cases, where they're not. And the system is under enormous tension. There are institutional changes underway in the relationship of the party to the formal government legal system. But they are very obscure, very hard to see. The will of the center is not being implemented in a consistent, uniform way throughout the country. But there is an ongoing struggle. But the party is going to continue to control the legal system. The meeting of the fourth plenum next month, which will talk about the rule of law, is really an attempt by the central government to enforce its will over the locality. They want to stop courts from being influenced by local influences. They want to make sure courts aren't really independent, but are responsive exclusively to the will of the center. So there's been an ongoing struggle. Jerome Cohen, when he was Minister of Public Security, tried very hard to get the ministry to control better what was taking place on the ground, local police. He made some progress, but not enough. And the influence of corruption and local protectionism and business interests and all the things that distort a court's independent judgment, they're trying to curb at the locality and move the influences up so that it isn't the locality that's appointing judges or deciding how much to pay them or whether they're going to be removed or determining the court budget, but it's at least the province. They'd love it to be the center, but the center can't really do the job. So it's at the provincial level that there's a struggle now. But the terrible thing is, it's lawyers who are where the rubber meets the road. They're the ones who try to apply these norms, and they're the ones who have been more repressed certainly than in recent decades. And you wonder why there are still lawyers fighting the fight. And I think the Sunday Times in London is going to have a piece on Sunday about Gouger Zhang. And they want to know, is he coming back? My question is he a vegetable? In 2006, I told Gouger Zhang, if you keep this up, you're not going to be on the street. It's better to do what the rest of the guys who were at the table were doing, fighting with one arm behind their back and not speaking out the truth of the system. Will never have a real rule of law restraining the party and government as long as the party has a monopoly. He spoke the truth, and they broke him, even though he was so proud and almost arrogant he thought they couldn't break it.
I'm sorry to follow up, please. You're saying also that the center is committed to this kind of reform, but not undermining it right now.
The center has an enlightened Supreme Court chief who should have been in the highest realms of the party but didn't make it for one reason or another. But he's a highly intelligent Peking University law graduate who is trying to reverse Hu Jintao's effort to deprofessionalize the legal system. He's doing what he can to make the system more professional, but he's not doing anything to make the system less subject to party influence. But he's trying to make it more regular. I keep holding out to them Japan as a model. Japan has judicial independence, but they have a lot of control of the judiciary from the central secretariat. And if a judge makes a wrong decision, he won't be in Tokyo much longer, even though he'd like to be. They'll move him out to some remote island. They have their own ways, but it looks a lot better, and it is a lot better in practice. But it would be a good model for China, but they're not ready for the party to tolerate autonomous decisions, even at the central level.
What's the name of the Supreme Court?
Zhou Qiang.
Zhou Qiang.
Zhou Qiang.
Zhou Qiang. He's a highly intelligent man who makes a very good impression on people, and he has some very good staff. They are trying to improve pieces of paper and even the practice, but it's a huge job, and corruption of the judiciary is just as bad as corruption of any other element now. They're awash with corruption. It's a sad situation, and yet the system is operating. And questions of selective prosecution come up even in the antitrust field. What's interesting now is, my hope is business, both Chinese domestic business and foreign business, will be a force for improving civil and criminal matters in practice. It used to be the State Department thought if a businessman got treated badly in China, whether Chinese or foreign, it wasn't a human rights case. I used to tell them business people also have human rights. And now we're seeing, because of the problems with respect to antitrust, problems with respect to intellectual property, they're all procedural questions here, and this may alert the foreign and domestic business community to help instead of ignoring the procedures involved.